Chapter 159, I'm Not Your Father. Ling Yun nodded, and the two finished their meal in silence. Now that they are friends, Pan Magia is no longer as embarrassed as she was when she was alone with him yesterday, so she wolfed down her food as usual. After drinking the last drop of soup, she sighed and patted her bulging belly. Looking at her, a flash of memory suddenly appeared in Ling Yun's mind. Only then did he realize that their first meeting was not the day she took him to the hospital, but during someone's wedding banquet. So she's that girl, he thought. After finishing the meal, Ling Yun went to the counter and bought 2 bowls of soup dumplings to take away and paid for them. While he was hospitalized, Zyro Li also helped him get some money and food stamps from home. Now, he uses 4 food stamps and less than 4 yuan to pay for their meals. When he left the restaurant, Pan Magia was already waiting for him with the bicycle. Seeing the bicycle, Ling Yun asked, "Did you borrow the bicycle again?" "How did you know I borrowed it?" she asked in surprise. "That day I heard your voice," Ling Yun said while sitting in the back seat. "I thought you were unconscious that day. How could you still hear what I said?" Pan Magia muttered softly. Ling Yun smiled after hearing her words, but pretended not to hear anything. He held onto the seat as she pedaled the bike. With him sitting in the back seat, Pan Magia stepped on the pedal and let out a low hum as she exerted her strength. Ling Yun looked at her fair neck and saw sweat rolling down her collar. He felt his mouth was dry and looked away. Suddenly, he felt hot all over his body for no reason. After a while, with the help of the cold wind, he finally felt better. However, he did not dare to look at her neck again. An hour later, they finally arrived at the village where Ling Yun lived. As soon as she entered the village, Pan Magia felt countless eyes falling on her instantly. She looked at those who were looking at her, smiled and nodded to them as a greeting. But what she got was not the usual friendly greetings, but stares or snorts instead. The villagers' reaction confused her. Do they really dislike outsiders that much? She just came to send her friend back. Is it necessary to be so cold to her? Pan Magia felt wronged, but she didn't say anything. After all, she doesn't live here, so there is no need to care too much about them. After pedaling for another 20 minutes, they finally arrived at Ling Yun's home. After getting off the bike, Ling Yun said, "Come in first and have a cup of tea before going back." "Maybe next time. Comrade Han is waiting for me. I need to return the bicycle before noon." Pan Magia rejected his proposal. Ling Yun felt uncomfortable when he heard that she had another plan with a man, but he did not persist. Before leaving, Pan Magia said, "By the way, I have already asked the doctor. At present, you need to avoid heavy-flavored and greasy food. Do not wet the wound before it scabs. Do not lift heavy objects for at least 3 weeks. In addition, eat more meat, chicken, fish, nuts and beans to replenish your blood. Change your dressing once a day and remember to finish the medicine." He nodded after listening to her words and smiled unconsciously. It feels so good to be taken care of. "I'll remember that." "Okay, I'll leave now." Pan Magia waved to him before leaving. Ling Yun stood there until he could no longer see her back, then entered the house. Next door, Sheng Xiaohong saw Ling Yun looking at a girl's back tenderly and twisting the hem of her clothes hatefully. She had never seen him so gentle before, let alone him smiling like that. It turned out to be that girl who seduced her man. While she was lost in thought, a little hand pulled her clothes and said, "Mother, I'm hungry." After coming back to her senses, Sheng Xiaohong lowered her head, looked at the thin and weak girl with disgust, and scolded, "Eat, eat, eat. You only know how to eat. I asked you to get close to Uncle Ling Yun and call him father, but you ignored my words. Useless." She slapped the little girl's hand away and walked toward the house. With a bang, the door closed, leaving the little girl standing outside the door crying. She bit her lip and lowered her head, not daring to disobey her mother. She held her red hands tightly and said softly, "Xiaohua has a father. Uncle Ling Yun is not Xiaohua's father." Not long after, she heard a deep voice coming from the other side. "Xiaohua, do you want to eat dumplings?" Looking back, she saw Ling Yun standing on the other side of the fence with a serious look on his face. Xiaohua walked over and said, "Uncle Ling Yun, Xiaohua wants dumplings, but Xiaohua already has a father, so Xiaohua can't call you father." Ling Yun glanced at the closed door, frowned and said, "I am not your father and I will never be your father, but you can always call me uncle, so do you want to eat or not?" Xiaohua nodded heavily. "Xiaohua want to eat." Ling Yun bent over the fence and hugged her over easily with one hand. He took the little girl to a stone table and said, "Finish it all." Xiaohua saw a bowl of warm soup dumplings and started eating. Despite being hungry, she ate slowly. Her father was an educated youth and was very strict with her education. Her father would buy a lot of meat for her to eat and tell her that her grandparents had a lot of money and their family would visit them during the new year. Unfortunately, her father died of a fever last year, so she can't visit her grandparents as she doesn't know where they live. After her father died, her mother scolded and beat her almost every day. Her mother also told her to call Uncle Ling her father. Xiaohua knew her mother wanted to marry Uncle Ling because everyone in the village said so. However, she didn't want to call another man her father, so she hoped that Uncle Ling could find an aunt and get married soon. That way, her mother couldn't force her to call another man father. Ling Yun didn't know that the little girl was thinking a lot in her little head. He watched her finish the soup dumplings without saying anything. After she finished eating the soup dumplings, he carried her over the fence and said, "Don't tell anyone about the soup dumplings, especially your mother." Xiaohua was confused and asked, "Why?" "Your aunt will be very sad if she knows that your mother comes to bother me again," Ling Yun said lightly. "My aunt?" Xiaohua asked again. Just like your father has your mother, your uncle has your aunt." After hearing what he said, Xiaohua's eyes lit up and she asked, "Then Uncle Ling won't become my father?" "Yes," Ling Yun nodded. "That's great, I don't need to call another person my father." Xiaohua was so happy that she clapped her hands. "Xiaohua, you can't forget your father, otherwise he will be sad," Ling Yun said, patting her head gently. Xiaohua will never forget Xiaohua's father. Afterwards, Ling Yun returned to his home, while Xiaohua went to play with other children. She was easy to coax, and with Ling Yun's promise and soup dumplings, all the sadness caused by her mother's scolding and beatings had been left behind. Meanwhile, Pan Magia has just arrived at the houses used as the educated youth's dormitory. As soon as she entered the front yard, she saw several educated youths sitting around 2 tables in the living room, talking and laughing. As soon as she parked the bicycle, she saw Comrade Han coming out with a bright smile. "Comrade Pan, you are here," he said with a smile. Pan Magia nodded, stood 5 steps away from him and said, "Comrade Han, thank you for lending me your bicycle. These soup dumplings are for you." When he took the warm soup dumpling, he smiled and said, "It's nothing. If you need help in the future, you can come to me." Pan Magia wanted to nod in agreement, but when she glanced at the living room, she found a girl looking towards them with a pale face. Although she has never been in love, she has seen many people fall in love, so when she saw the girl's expression, she knew she had feelings for Comrade Han. In an instant, the words in her mouth changed. "Thank you, but there's no need to disturb you. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." Before he could speak, Pan Magia turned around and left without hesitation. He stood there with a soup bag in hand as he looked at her. In the county town, Lu Jiu and Li Chenmo just arrived at the hospital and took the number. Because Li Chenmo has already registered before, he can go directly to the doctor's office. The nurse knocked on the door and heard a hoarse voice coming from inside, "Please come in." Upon entering the room, Lu Jiu noticed Dr. Yu's dark circles as he yawned. Seeing them coming, Dr. Yu smiled and said, "Brother Lei, sister-in-law, please have a seat." After the 2 of them took their seats, Dr. Yu said, "It's not time for Brother Lei's physical examination yet. Do you feel any discomfort or pain?" Li Chenmo shook his head and said, "I'm fine. I came here today to do a checkup to reassure my wife. She was always worried about my injuries." Dr. Yu glanced at him sideways and said, "Brother Li, I haven't slept for almost 30 hours and have a bad temper right now." Hearing this, Li Chenmo smiled and said, "When you are free, I will treat you to dinner." After listening to his words, Dr. Yu's face improved a little and said, "That's more like it." Then he filled out a form, handed it to the nurse and said, "Brother Lei, you can go do the test first." "Comrade, please come with me," the nurse said, leading the way. After they left the room, Lu Jiu looked at Dr. Yu and asked, "Dr. Yu, do you have a cold?" Dru was stunned and said, "Sister-in-law, how do you know?" "Your voice is already so hoarse. If you didn't get enough sleep, the hoarseness wouldn't be so serious," Lu Jiu said. "Sister-in-law is very knowledgeable," Dr. Yu said with a smile. "I have some wild honey at home. How about I ask my husband to bring it to you tomorrow?" she asked. Dr. Yu was surprised by her generosity and said, "Thank you for your kindness, but it's not necessary. Wild honey is rare and good for health, so my sister-in-law better keep it for Brother Li." "It's all right, just treat it as a gift from your sister-in-law. What's more, you have been taking care of my husband's injuries for such a long time, and you are still my husband's comrade," Lu Jiyu said with a smile. Seeing her insistence, Dr. Yu no longer refused and said, "Then I'll thank you, sister-in-law." "No problem. By the way, I need to use the bathroom." "Oh, the bathroom is on the left at the end of the corridor," Dr. Yu said. Lu Jiyu left the room and went to the corridor to wait for Li Chenmo. As a married woman, it is not good to be alone with another man. Even though the door was open and the man was a doctor, she still felt uncomfortable staying in a room with another man when her husband was not around. After waiting for 20 minutes, Li Chenmo came back with the nurse. He smiled when he saw his wife waiting for him in the hallway. He walked up to her and asked, "Why are you waiting here?" "It's too stuffy inside," Lu Jiyu said with a smile. Li Chenmo nodded and followed her in. After reading the examination report, Dr. Yu clicked his tongue and said, "Brother Lei, I must admit that your recovery rate is indeed very high. In less than a month since your last visit, you have fully recovered. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe such a thing was possible." This time, Li Chenmo already knew the reason for his fast recovery, so he just smiled and said, "It's all thanks to my wife's care." Dr. Yu felt that if they stayed longer, he might die of envy and said, "Well, since you have recovered, you don't need to come here for checkups anymore." "That's great, thank you, doctor." Lu Jiyu was overjoyed and sincerely thanked him. "You're welcome, sister-in-law, just remember that meal," Dr. Yu said with a smile. "Of course, I'll ask my husband to bring you food and wild honey tomorrow." Lu Jiyu readily agreed. After paying the hospital bill, they left with a relaxed mood. Lu Jiyu was relieved that her husband finally avoided the fate of becoming a crippled person. Since she can change the fate of the male protagonist, then as a canon fodder, she must also be able to change her own fate, right? Seeing that his wife was in a good mood, Li Chenmo came closer and asked, "Wife, are you that happy?" "Of course, knowing that you have fully recovered, I can finally feel at ease," Lu Jiyu said without hesitation. "Husband, how about we treat our neighbors who helped us build the pigsty for a meal? Due to the new year, we haven't had the chance to treat them to a meal. We should thank them properly for their help to us," she added. Li Chenmo thought for a moment, nodded, and said, "Then I'll notify them to come over for dinner." All right. Riding a bicycle, they returned to the village. This time, they didn't bring anything out from Lu Jiyu's space. When the villagers saw them riding the bicycle again, they could only say some sour words. "Tusk, riding a bicycle around the village every day. Are you afraid that no one will know that you bought a new bicycle? Show off." Indeed, people are struggling to get enough food, but some people show off their bicycle every day. There is really no justice in this world. Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu both regarded those words as fart and ignored them. When they got home, Li Chenmo went to invite his father and Li Chen's to dinner. Lu Jiyu went to her own space and started preparing meals. Due to the time difference between inside and outside the space, she has plenty of time to prepare more exquisite dishes. Since the guests were men with big appetites, Lu Jiyu prepared 2 honey-glazed lemon-roasted chickens, a pot of hot and sour fish soup, a plate of stir-fried vegetables, a plate of braised pork and white rice steamed with pandan leaves. She also prepared rice wine to accompany the meal. After the meal was ready, Lu Jiyu went to take a bath and take a nap. At the same time, Li Chenmo had just invited Li Chen's, Han Yuheng, Lu Han and Lu Cheng and arrived at Father Li's house. All he had to do was inform Father Li and the educated youth. As soon as he locked the bicycle, he saw Zhao Siyu coming from the kitchen. The moment she saw the bicycle, her eyes widened in surprise. She walked over quickly, locked her eyes on the bicycle and clicked her tongue. She reached out and wanted to touch the bicycle, but seeing how new it was, she didn't dare to touch it. "Third brother, is this your bicycle?" she asked. "MHMM." After giving her a low hum as a reply, Li Chenmo ignored her and walked into the house. Before entering the living room, he heard Li Chengxun's voice. "Father, you are too partial. You gave the ancestral home to the third brother but refused to lend me money. Without money, how do you expect my wife and I to live in the county town and survive until the end of the month?" "I've told you many times I have no money," Father Li said. "Father, how could you have no money?" Li Chengxun said in disbelief. "Where do you think my money comes from? It's from your third brother's salary. Now, your third brother has retired from the army and has no salary every month. Where do I get the money from?" Father Li said calmly. Before Li Chengxun could speak, Li Chenmo walked into the living room and interrupted him coldly. "Second brother, didn't my eldest brother just lend you 20 yuan a few days ago? You promised us not to disturb our father. Why did you come to disturb our father to ask for money after a few days? Have you forgotten our words or your own?" When Li Chengxun heard what he said, he immediately said with a frown, Third brother, me and my wife live in a town. What can we buy for just 20 yuan? Without coupons, we can only go to that place and buy at a higher price. Li Chenmo snorted, sat down and said, Second brother, you don't have to say it so nicely. We all know that your wife is unwilling to live a harsh life. She only wants to eat white rice and meat dishes every day. Since you don't have money, you should let her learn how to live. Don't spend money indiscriminately and get yourself into debt. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Siyu entered the living room and said, Third brother, my health is not good and I cannot neglect my diet. Otherwise, I will be like someone who gets sick every 3 days. She can't even earn work points and she can only become a burden. After Zhao Siyu finished speaking, Li Chenmo raised his eyes and looked at her coldly. When Zhao Siyu saw his gaze, she trembled all over and felt a chill running down her spine, but she refused to back down and straightened her back instead. Li Chenmo let out a chuckle and said with a sneer, What you said is true. My wife cannot do heavy work and is often sick. However, she has a capable husband who is able to let her eat her fill every day without putting their family in debt. She even has extra money to spend as she pleases. But what about you? Your husband is incompetent, weak, indecisive, and timid. Since he can't earn enough money for you to spend, you should learn how to live a modest life. Even if your family lives in the county town, you are not a rich girl, so don't act like one. Don't keep forcing your husband to go to your father-in-law for money. How embarrassing, he added harshly. Li Chenmo, who are you calling incompetent, weak, indecisive, and timid? Li Chengshuan slapped the table, stood up, and shouted. Li Chenmo poured himself a cup of water, took a sip, and said calmly, Zhao Siyu's husband. Who else? The moment he uttered those words, Li Chengshuan was angered and felt a pain in his chest due to the frustration. Growing up, he had never defeated his third brother. Whether it's a fight or an argument, he always gets the short end of the stick. Do you think I won't dare to hit you when father is here? Li Chengshuan said through gritted teeth. Do you think you can beat me? Li Chenmo asked him with raised brows. Indeed, in terms of physical strength alone, he had no chance of winning against his third brother. What's more, Li Chenmo has been in the army for 11 years. In addition to daily training, he also experienced countless life and death battles which hone his combat skills, instincts, and willpower. If there was a fight, Li Chenmo might be able to kill him with one punch. Li Chengshuan was choked by his words and could only glare at him. Since he couldn't win against Li Chenmo, he turned to look at Father Li and asked, Father, my third brother already disrespects me like this, won't you say anything? Father Li sighed and said, Second son, if you want to improve yourself, you must first admit your shortcomings before you can change them and become a better person. You always know what your shortcomings are, but you are never willing to admit them, let alone change yourself for the better. If you continue down this path, there is only a bleak future waiting for you. You are all my children and I always want the best for you, but your father is old and I cannot protect you forever. You should learn how to support yourself and your family. I am tired and it is time for you and your wife to go back. Father Li shook his head again and returned to his room, unwilling to see his disappointing second son. Looking at his father's tired back, Li Chenmo's eyes darkened. He looked at Li Chengshuan and said, Second brother, this is my last warning to you. Stop bothering our father for money. If you still insist on doing this, don't blame me for not giving you face. Li Chenmo, who do you think you are? You are the youngest son, is this how you talk to your second brother? Zhao Siyu could no longer suppress the anger in her heart and pointed at Li Chenmo. He and his wife always ruin their plans. Li Chenmo glanced at her finger coldly until she retracted it back and said, If you want me to treat your husband as my second brother, you have to make him act like a brother first. If it weren't for my father, I wouldn't even want to consider you as family. Both Zhao Siyu and Li Chengshuan were so angry at Li Chenmo that they almost fainted. Before they could calm down, Li Chenmo said again, Since there is nothing else, you can leave. His voice was commanding, leaving no room for negotiation. Even if they were angry and had the urge to bite him to death, they did not dare to go against him. One punch from him might send 2 people to the hospital. It's simply not worth it. Li Chenmo, don't be too arrogant. One day you will get retribution. After Li Chengshuan finished speaking, he left angrily. Just you wait, Zhao Siyu said and left in a hurry. After they left, Li Chenmo knocked on Father Li's door and asked, Father, can I come in? Third son, come in. Opening the door, he saw Father Li smoking. He sat on the kang bed and said, Father, you should smoke less. This is not good for your health. Father Li nodded and sighed. Third son, don't blame your second brother. It's I who failed to educate him well. When your second brother was born, he was sick and needed to stay in the hospital for a week. Your mother felt very guilty, so she doted on him too much. Li Chenmo lowered his eyes and said, I understand, father. Father Li looked at his third son and said nothing. What he didn't tell Li Chenmo was that when his second son was born, he was kidnapped as soon as he was born. Fortunately, the officers found him abandoned on the side of the road 2 days later. When they found him, he had a cold and a high fever. At that time, both Father Li and Mother Li felt guilty about the accident. Due to their negligence, their second son met with misfortune. After that, they doted on him until Li Chenmo was born. When they discovered that their second son had a bad personality, it was too late to correct it. Despite this, Father Li and Mother Li never gave up correcting Li Chengxuan's bad thoughts. Unfortunately, until Mother Li passed away, Li Chengxuan not only did not change his mind, but even accused them of favoring Li Chenmo. Li Chenmo didn't know what Father Li was thinking and said, "Father, my wife and I want to invite you and the educated youth to a meal today. After the pig pen was built, we didn't have the opportunity to treat everyone to a meal. Before spring plowing, we want to thank everyone properly." Father Li nodded and said, "It's good that your wife could understand this. Even if you prepare lunch and tea, you still need to prepare a meal to thank everyone. Father will tell the educated youths. Father, if you need anything, you must tell me. Otherwise, my wife will worry about you. Just a few days ago, she complained that your quilt was old and thin. She has prepared a new quilt for you. I'll bring it to you tonight," Li Chenmo said with a smile. Father Li was very happy after hearing their concern and said, "My quilt still can be used. There is no need to make a new one for me. What's more, it is already early spring. The weather has warmed up, so there is no need for a quilt in summer. Then just keep it for the next year." Father Li laughed and said, "All right, I will accept you and your wife's filial piety." "Good, then I will take my leave first," Li Chenmo nodded and said. "MHMM." After leaving Father Li's house, Li Chenmo returned on his bicycle. When he was riding past the village hall, he saw a person standing at the corner of the road. It seemed that she wanted to block his way. He narrowed his eyes and speeded up instead of slowing down when he saw who it was. When Suanna saw him coming, her heart skipped a beat and her face turned red. He was so handsome that she was too shy to look at him. Seeing that the bicycle was still 10 meters away from her, she took a step forward and said with a sweet smile, "Brother Chen." "Wash tilde." Before she finished speaking, she felt a gust of wind blowing past her. She stood motionless in disbelief. When she came to her senses and turned around, Li Chenmo was nowhere to be seen. She stamped her feet angrily and said, "How hateful, I won't give up. Li Chenmo, one day you will be mine." Li Chenmo didn't know that another delusional girl was complaining about him and arrived at his house. After locking the bicycle, he went to the kitchen to wash up and then went to the bedroom. When he opened the door, it was empty. He frowned and went to the kitchen to check. After searching the whole house, he still couldn't find his wife. As he sat on the kang bed, he clenched his fists silently. He knew the possibility of his wife being in her space was high. However, he still didn't like this helpless feeling. There was nothing he could do but wait for her. Just as he was deep in thought, a series of memories suddenly appeared in his mind. It felt like this wasn't the first time he'd waited for his wife. The memories in his mind were confusing, but he still noticed that the cars and buildings were different from the current era. He waited for a long time in front of a brightly lit tree, but she didn't come. In these memories, he sees himself taking out a rectangular object and reading the message. He was surprised when he saw that thing. How can a small rectangular box take so many photos and even send messages? While Li Chenmo was surprised, him in those memories seemed very lonely and sad. He chuckled and said wearily, "Yu, why can't I be your top priority? You promised me that you would definitely come. I waited for so long, but you only sent me an apology." Li Chenmo saw him standing there for a long time until his shoulders were covered with snow. Then he looked at the night sky and said softly, "Maybe I should give up like what my family told me to, but I'm unwilling. I can't bear to let you go. Yu, what should I do?" When those memories disappeared, Li Chenmo felt a sharp pain in his heart, as if he had been stabbed by a blunt knife. He clutched his chest and gasped. He endured the pain while his forehead and back were covered with cold sweat. The feeling was unbearable. It was devastating. The next moment, Lu Jiu suddenly appeared in front of him. When she saw his condition, she was startled and walked over quickly. Seeing his pale face and cold sweat, she asked tremblingly, "Husband, what's wrong with you?" Seeing him clutching his chest and breathing heavily, Lu Jiu was afraid that he was having a heart attack and said in panic, "Husband, let's go to the hospital." When she wanted to turn around and get her jacket, she was pulled back by Li Chenmo. Caught off guard, she fell backward into his arms. The moment Li Chenmo hugged her, the pain in his chest was reduced by more than half. He felt like the missing piece in his soul was finally returned. His fear, anxiety, desperation, and grievance disappeared instantly. Lu Jiu wanted to stand up, but Li Chenmo tightened his arms around her and said hoarsely, "Wife, don't go. Let me hug you for a while." "Husband, let's go to the hospital first," Lu Jiu said with worry and panic in her voice. "Just a while, I'll be fine in a while," he said, burying his face in her neck and taking a deep breath. Smelling his wife's unique fragrance, he finally felt at ease. "She is here, she is mine," he thought obsessively. Lu Jiu didn't dare to move, fearing that she would make him feel more uncomfortable. After a long time, she finally heard her husband say, "Wife, next time you want to go to that place, take me with you." "I don't want to feel these feelings anymore," he added in his heart. Lu Jiu was shocked when she heard what he said. She didn't expect him to be so clingy. She had only been in her space for a while, so why did he seem to have suffered a huge grievance, as if he had been abandoned by her for a long time? She didn't know whether to cry or laugh about the current situation. She knew she shouldn't laugh at her husband, but she just couldn't help it. Her husband is too cute. Hearing his wife's giggle, Li Chenmo bit her earlobe, feeling dissatisfied. He felt sad and anxious, but she still laughed at him. She is so naughty. "Ah, why did you bite me?" Lu Jiu asked with a pout. "Wife, how can you laugh at your husband?" Li Chenmo asked in a low voice dangerously. Hearing his voice, Lu Jiu blushed. Before she could refute, Li Chenmo said again, "It seems that I need to punish you." The next moment, Li Chenmo pushed her onto the bed, lowered his head and sealed her lips. Her screams were swallowed up by him. The kiss was overbearing and impatient. His kiss was demanding and pleading at the same time. This was different from his usual kisses that were gentle and fleeting. When he tried to kiss her deeper, he found that his wife was stunned and unable to react. She looked at him with wide eyes, unblinking. He parted their lips and said hoarsely, "Wife, be good, close your eyes." As if being hypnotized, Lu Jiu obediently closed her eyes. Seeing her being so obedient, Li Chenmo chuckled, lowered his head and kissed her again. This time his kiss was more gentle. He licked and bit her lips, as if he was tasting the best delicacy in the world. Lu Jiu was overwhelmed by his kiss and forgot to breathe. She felt her body go limp and numbness spread from her lips to her whole body. Her heart was beating fast, like countless deer running inside. When she opened her lips to take a breath, she felt something soft, hot, and slippery rush into her mouth and tangled with her tongue. She gripped the sheets while her toes curled from the kiss. Li Chenmo was delighted to finally taste the sweetness in his wife's mouth. Although his expression was calm, his heart was beating very fast, as if it would explode in the next second. This was their first deep kiss, and Li Chenmo had no experience yet, but as a man he learned quickly. The longer they kissed, the better his skills got. After all, he had heard a lot about techniques and positions in bed from his comrades in the military camp. So, even without practical experience, he had a lot of theory, and it was time to try it with his wife. Lu Jiu felt dizzy and didn't know how long they kissed. All she knew was that his taste filled her mouth, and his hot body enveloped her body like a warm sun. Her face was flushed with embarrassment and excitement, her tongue was numb from his plunder, and her lips were sore and swollen. So this is a kiss. She loved his kiss so much. 10 minutes that felt like an eternity finally passed, and Li Chenmo finally parted his lips from hers. A thin silver thread connected their lips and broke after a moment. Li Chenmo looked deeply at his wife's flushed face, tearful eyes, and red and swollen lips. His eyes darkened and his entire body tensed even more, especially his lower abdomen. He needed to use all his willpower to restrain himself. He wiped his wife's red and swollen lips with his thumb and said in a hoarse voice, "Wife, don't look at me like that, or I won't be able to hold back myself." Hearing his words, Lu Jiu suddenly came back to her senses. As she tried to move away from his body, she felt something hot and hard poking her belly. She blushed instantly as she realized what it was. Even her ears and neck turned red as if blood would flow out the next moment. "Husband, you move a little," she whispered softly. After hearing his wife's words, Li Chenmo took a sharp, deep breath. Does she know what she just said? How could she ask him to move so coquettishly? Did she try to kill him? It's really hard for him to restrain himself. Li Chenmo's eyes were burning and full of desire, yet his expression was still calm. He looked deeply at his wife but saw that she shyly avoided his gaze. After a while, he let out a long sigh and reluctantly moved away from her. It seems his wife really wants him to move away. After breaking free from her husband's arms, Lu Jiu sat up and took a look at Li Chenmo's lower body and saw a big bulge there. Her throat and mouth felt so dry, so she licked her lips and swallowed. She looked away embarrassedly and asked, "Husband, are you okay?" Li Chenmo looked at his wife's flushed face and said helplessly, "It will be fine after a while." He lowered his eyes and saw his condition. It was obvious that his brother was standing at attention at this moment, and it might have embarrassed his wife, but he had no intention of hiding it from her. They were married, and he should let his wife get used to it. Although his blood was boiling and his body was burning with unsatisfied desires, Li Chenmo felt happy and satisfied in his heart. She didn't reject his intimacy, which was a good sign. Lu Jiu lowered her head and arranged her clothes. She dared not look directly at her husband. Her clothes became messy for some reason, and several buttons in the front lapel were opened, revealing a thin blue vest. Just when she was thinking about how to avoid him for a while, she was hugged from behind. Li Chenmo put his arms around her slender waist and shoulders and said, "Wife, we are already married. There is no need for you to be so embarrassed. We will do more embarrassing things than kissing in the future. You should get used to it." After hearing his words, Lu Jiu felt her head go blank. There were only a few questions that kept repeating in her mind. Where am I? Who am I? What was he saying? After a while she came back to her senses and stammered, I know, I'm not embarrassed. Li Chenmo chuckled softly when he heard her words. He smiled and looked at her rosy cheeks and red earlobes. His wife is so adorable. He lowered his head and kissed her earlobe and whispered, "That's good. Wife, do you like my kiss? I think we should practice more in the future since both of us are inexperienced. Wife, what do you think?" I. Lu Jiu wanted to pretend to be tough, saying that his kiss was just so-so. However, when she opened her lips, she couldn't even utter a complete sentence. In the end, she could only nod. Who else could she blame for the current situation but herself, who told her not to find a boyfriend in her previous life and made her a newbie in the matter of relationships? What's more, she really liked his kisses. Despite their lack of skills, she felt her heart was so full, and she felt so happy and content with their intimacy. Li Chenmo smiled happily, kissed her earlobes a few more times, and then let her go. As if she had been pardoned, Lu Jiu hurried to the backyard to calm down. Lu Jiu washed her face with cold water for a while, before the blush on her cheeks subsided a little. After calming down, she took a look at the bedroom direction and felt her cheeks getting hot again. Jiu, get a hold of yourself. This is just a kiss. She patted her cheek and took a few deep breaths before finally driving the image of the kiss out of her mind. She raised her head and found that the sky was starting to get dark. She hurried to the kitchen and lit a fire. As soon as the water boiled, she heard Li Chen's voice coming from the front yard. "Third brother, third sister-in-law. Coming." Hearing Li Chenmo's voice, Lu Jiu did not go out. When the water boiled, she opened the lid and took out the rice wine she had prepared earlier from her space. She placed the jug into the boiling water and closed the lid. She moved the wood from the stove to reduce the intensity of the fire. The weather is still cold at night, so it would be better to drink some warm rice wine. What's more, drinking warm rice wine is better for both her husband and Father Li. Not long after Li Chen's arrived, Lu Han, Lu Cheng, and Han Yuheng also arrived, followed by Father Li and the educated youths. Lu Jiu heard their voices and took out the food she had prepared earlier from the space. Not long after, Li Chenmo entered the kitchen and said, "Wife, everyone is here." "Then let's serve the food," she nodded to him. Li Chenmo came over and helped her carry the food to the living room. He first brought out the steamed rice and tableware. Father Li didn't say anything when he saw the white rice. He has become accustomed to his third daughter-in-law's generosity and cooking skills. He is almost 60 years old, and it is indeed time to enjoy life. After bringing out the rice, Li Chenmo returned to the kitchen and brought out 2 honey lemon glazed roasted chickens. This time, when everyone saw the roast chicken, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Li Chenmo was like a diligent server, bringing the dishes one after another from the kitchen. When everyone saw a pot of hot and sour fish soup, a large bowl of braised pork, and a large plate of stir-fried vegetables, everyone's eyes widened in shock. But what was even more shocking was the rice wine Li Chenmo brought out. When he placed the wine jug on the table and opened the seal, everyone took a deep breath. The wine smells like caramel, with a hint of sweetness and herbal smoke. Lu Jiu placed several cups on the table, and Li Chenmo filled the cups with wine with a bamboo ladle. After distributing the rice wine, they sat down. "Everyone, me and my wife would like to thank you for your help. Due to various reasons, this meal has been postponed until now. Today, please eat your fill and don't be shy. I will drink this cup of rice wine to thank everyone." Li Chenmo raised his cup and said. With that, he emptied the cup. Seeing her husband drink the rice wine at once, Lu Jiu's eyes widened. Although rice wine has a lower alcohol content and is sweeter than white wine, its aftertaste is dry and sharp. She quickly poured him some warm water and whispered, "Why are you drinking like this? Your injury has just recovered." Li Chenmo smiled and took a sip of the warm water. His alcohol tolerance is very high. He wouldn't get drunk even if he drank a bottle of baijiu, let alone a cup of rice wine. But his wife was worried about him, and he couldn't bear to refuse her care, so he drank the water obediently. Everyone laughed when they saw their interaction and finished their drinks. Seeing everyone finish the rice wine at once, Lu Jiu felt that she needed to do the same. But when she raised the cup, Li Chenmo touched her hand and said in a low voice, "Drink slowly." She looked around and saw that everyone had already started eating. She nodded at him and took a sip. The rice wine is well aged and very delicious. As usual, she scooped a bowl of hot and sour fish soup for Li Chenmo, and then scooped another bowl for herself. When she sat down, she saw a few pieces of braised lean pork in her bowl. She glanced at her husband and smiled. He never spoke out his fondness for her often, but his small actions showed how much he cared for her. The meal lasted for nearly an hour. After eating, Lu Jiu gave them a small bottle of rice wine and asked them to take it back. As for Father Li, she gave him a jug that could hold 5 liters of wine. They sent Father Li to the door, and Li Chenmo said, "Father, I will visit you in a moment." Father Li knew that he was talking about sending the new quilt, so he nodded and left. When the night deepened, the villagers were all asleep. Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu left home on their bicycle. In less than 15 minutes, they arrived at Father Li's house. After entering the front yard and closing the gate, Lu Jiu checked the surrounding situation. After making sure there was no one around, she took out the quilt she made for Father Li from her space. Li Chenmo hugged the quilt and knocked on the door. Not long after, Father Li opened the door and let him in. Father Li was shocked when he saw that the moment the thick new quilt was spread, it could cover his kang bed. "Third daughter-in-law, why did you make the quilt so big? I sleep alone and only need a small piece." Father Li said distressingly. This quilt must cost them a lot of money in coupons, not to mention the price. Even the coupon itself is hard to come by. Li Chenmo noticed his father's emotions and said, "Father, a larger quilt can cover your body better. You always feel pain in your joints when the weather is cold, so you need to cover your body properly." Father Li sighed and said, "I understand. Father, my wife is still waiting for me outside. It's time for me to go back now," Li Chenmo said. "Thank your wife for me," Father Li said. After returning home, they locked the door and entered Lu Jiu's space to take a shower. They decided not to sleep in Lu Jiu's space because it would disrupt their biological clocks. Lying on the warm kang bed, Li Chenmo hugged his wife and said, "Wife, thank you." Lu Jiu almost fell asleep, so when she heard his words, she didn't open her eyes but just asked softly, "Husband, what do you thank me for?" "I thank you for being my wife and for taking care of me and my family. Father likes the quilt very much," Li Chenmo said with a smile. I'm your wife. Taking care of you and your family is what I should do," Lu Jiu mumbled. Li Chenmo lowered his head and looked at her sleeping face. He looked at her for a long time, listening to her long and even breathing. He kissed the top of her head and said, "Wife, I love you." These were words he had hidden in his heart for a long time, and he only dared to say them to her when she was asleep. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard his wife muttering something, but he couldn't hear what she was saying. All he could see was her curled lips as she clung to him. Li Chenmo closed his eyes and fell into a dreamless sleep. With his wife in his arms, he feels happy and content. Early the next morning, Lu Jiu woke up before dawn and felt a warm palm on her back. She opened her eyes suddenly as she felt a palm was inside her clothes, having skin-to-skin contact with her back. She looked down and saw that Li Chenmo's hand had indeed reached into her clothes. She took a sharp breath and looked at her sleeping husband in shock. Why is this man's hand so unruly when sleeping? She slowly pulled her husband's hand out of her clothes. When his warm palm brushed against her skin, she felt her scalp go numb and her cheeks hot. After some effort, she finally succeeded in removing his hand from her clothes without waking him. She quickly got off the kang bed, combed her hair, and went to the bathroom. After she left the bedroom, Li Chenmo opened his eyes and looked at the door. A glint flashed in his eyes and the corners of his lips raised. After yawning, he turned over and went back to sleep as if nothing had happened. In the bathroom, Lu Jiu washed her face with cold water. She felt something was different about her husband, but she didn't know what was wrong. In the past, even if they slept together, her husband would only hold her in his arms at most, but today his hands reached into her clothes. 10 minutes passed and she could still feel Li Chenmo's warmth on her back. The heartbeat that had just calmed down suddenly accelerated again. At this moment, Lu Jiu felt that she might be eaten clean by her husband in the near future. Although she was a little worried and scared, she still had some expectations. After all, her husband's kisses are so good. Lu Jiu walked out of the bathroom while giggling. As soon as she opened the door, she saw her husband leaning against the wall with his eyes closed. She was taken aback and said, "Husband, what are you doing here?" Li Chenmo did not answer her question, but walked over and pulled her into his arms. He leaned his head on her neck and said in a hoarse voice, "Wife, it's still early. Why did you get up so early?" "Didn't we accept Huzi's order? I plan to complete the order today," Lu Jiu said. "MHMM." Seeing that her husband was still half asleep, she smiled and entered her own space with him. She patted him on the back and said, "Husband, I'm going to prepare the food. You go to sleep some more." Li Chenmo opened his eyes and looked around. Seeing that he was in her space, he walked towards the bedroom and continued to sleep. He was afraid that she would enter her space alone, so even though he was sleepy, he waited for her outside the bathroom. Lu Jiu looked at her husband's slow-paced movement and shook her head. It seems that her husband didn't sleep well yesterday. While Li Chenmo was sleeping, Lu Jiu went to the kitchen to prepare the order. She looked at the order and saw that the jujube cake wasn't ordered by slice, but ordered by bowl. Each bowl is equivalent to 8 slices, so the price is 4 yuan per bowl. There are 41 orders for jujube cakes. After thinking about it, she decided to make 45 bowls of jujube cake. Her space has a huge 3-layered steamer that can steam 3 bowls on each layer. She can steam 9 bowls at one time, which improves her work efficiency. After the batter was ready and the jujube cake was steamed, Lu Jiu took several packs of dumpling wrappers from the warehouse. In addition to the usual meat dumplings, she also prepares shrimp dumplings, one of the most popular dim sum in her previous life. There are a total of 670 frozen dumplings that were ordered, so she made 800 meat dumplings and 200 shrimp dumplings. Although the order volume was large, she had a lot of time in her own space, so she worked with leisure. As soon as the jujube cake was finished steaming, she saw Li Chenmo walking out of the bedroom and heading to the bathroom. Looking at his back, she fell into deep thought. She was thinking about what would have happened if she had not escaped from her own feelings in her previous life and bravely accepted her senior's feelings. Maybe their lives will have different endings. She had let him down so many times due to her cowardice that she was not worthy of his sincere feelings anymore. But even at the last moment of his life, he still did not let her go. Now she lives a happy life with another man in another world. Would he blame her? He must be very angry and sad, right? When Li Chenmo came out of the bathroom, he saw his wife looking at him in a daze. At first, he thought she was mesmerized by him, but when he walked closer, he felt that she was looking at someone else through him. Unknowingly, jealousy welled up in his heart. She was his, and he wouldn't let her think about another person, especially not that man in her dreams. She can only think of him alone. He walked over gloomily, leaned over and kissed her lips. The moment their lips came into contact, he gently bit her lips and then raised his head. He looked at her deeply and said in a low voice, "Good morning, wife, what are you thinking?" Lu Jiu was startled by his kiss and came to her senses. When she saw his gloomy eyes, her heart skipped a beat. Her husband's appearance and personality are so similar to her seniors that sometimes she thinks they are the same person. Both are very possessive and can even be domineering at times. She clearly felt his jealousy and displeasure, so she said with a smile, "Good morning, husband, I'm thinking of you." Li Chenmo fell silent when he heard her words. Although he didn't say anything, he was complaining in his heart, "HMPH, you're thinking of someone else." He knows that every second he spends with his wife, his possessiveness is growing, along with his anxiety and fear of losing her, which is detrimental to their relationship. Logically speaking, since they were married, he shouldn't feel this way. But there was a small voice inside him that kept telling him that she could leave him at any moment, which made him panic and feel so insecure. Lu Jiu didn't know why her husband suddenly became like this. Could it be that he dreamed of something that made him angry? In her previous life, she had read many posts on the forum. They either seek solutions or complain about their partner who is suddenly angry at them for no reason. When she asked them if they had done anything wrong, they said their partners had dreamed that they were cheating on their partner with another person. So when their partner wakes up, they are angry and throw a tantrum. Although it is rare for men to do this, there are certainly many cases, especially for jealous men. In just a few seconds, Lu Jiu's brain was working rapidly. She looked at her husband's dark face and leaned toward him suddenly. She kissed the tip of his nose and said, "Husband, why are you angry with me? Did I do something wrong?" The moment he felt his wife's soft lips touch the tip of his nose, Li Chenmo was stunned. In an instant, all those uncomfortable feelings disappeared without a trace. He glanced at his wife and said resentfully, "Wife, you are not allowed to think of another man when you are with me." "No, even if you are not with me, you are still not allowed to think about other men. You can only think about me," he added. Lu Jiu was startled by his words. This was the first time Li Chenmo had shown such obvious jealousy towards her. Although Lu Jiu was surprised by his jealousy, she found that she didn't dislike it. Instead, she was happy. In a good mood, she giggled and thought, it turns out my husband loves me very much. While Li Chenmo was complaining, he heard his wife giggling and felt unhappy. He leaned down and kissed her deeply, stopping her laughter at once. Caught off guard, Lu Jiu was kissed deeply by her husband and was stunned. Li Chenmo didn't let her go until she was about to suffocate. He lowered his eyes and looked at his wife's flushed cheeks. He rubbed her red and swollen lips and said hoarsely, "Wife, you are so beautiful." After saying that, he leaned over and pecked her lips, eyes, nose, cheeks, and earlobes a few more times before he was satisfied. Lu Jiu was panting after being kissed. She licked her lips and looked at her husband's back as he helped her pack the jujube cakes. She stood there motionless for a full minute before she came to her senses. After kissing his wife, Li Chenmo's mood instantly improved. With a smile on his handsome face, he wrapped the jujube cake in oil paper. He even hummed military songs while working. Lu Jiu took a deep breath and exhaled it slowly before finally calming down. She sat down and continued to make dumplings. After several hours of work, they finally completed the order. Lu Jiu went to wash up and change clothes before leaving the space. When they came out of her space, the sky was still dark. After locking the house, they headed toward the town. After buying a bicycle, their travel becomes more convenient. Li Chenmo was pedaling a bicycle, and Lu Jiu was sitting in front. Li Chenmo's arms were by her side while she sat down sideways and hugged his waist. She leaned against his chest and looked at the stars. Hugging like this, both of them felt much warmer. When they reached the town, it was daybreak. After finding a desolate corner, Lu Jiu put the bicycle into her space and took out 2 large bamboo baskets. Today they are just here to deliver jujube cakes and dumplings. Lu Jiu also wanted to inform Huzi that they would not come to the market for the time being. After the Lantern Festival, they will be busy with spring plowing, and she also needs to raise pigs. At first, she thought the piglets needed to be bought by themselves, but then Li Chenmo told her that the piglets were given to them by the government and they just had to raise them. As long as they can raise it up to 150 kilograms, they can earn a lot of work points. After walking for a while, they arrived at Huzi's place. Li Chenmo knocked on the door. Not long after, the door was opened by Huzi's assistant. When the young man saw it was them, he smiled and said, "Brother, sister-in-law, you are here." They nodded to him in greeting and went inside. Entering the room, Lu Jiu was stunned when she saw that Pan Magia was also inside. "Magia, why are you here?" Lu Jiu asked. Like her, Pan Magia was also surprised to see them. She looked at the big bamboo basket behind their backs and knew they were here to sell things. She smiled and said, "I'm here to buy meat." Huzi looked at them and asked, "Magia, do you know them?" Pan Magia nodded and said, "Cousin, they are my friends." Lu Jiu was shocked when she heard Pan Magia call Huzi her cousin. She remembered that this information was not written in the original novel. But considering Pan Magia's intervention every time Zyro Yiking encounters danger in the black market, and her accurate understanding of the black market situation, then everything makes sense if Huzi is Pan Magia's cousin. Huzi was surprised when he heard his cousin's words. He smiled even more happily and said, "I didn't expect this world to be so small." Pan Magia rolled her eyes at her cousin and said, "Cousin, give me the meat quickly. Also, you should go home before the Lantern Festival, or at least reply to the letter. Auntie keeps asking me about your news." Huzi waved his hands impatiently and said, "Don't bother me with this matter. You know, if I go back, my mother will definitely force me to get married. I won't get married until I make enough money." Pan Magia sighed and said, "Then do what you want. I won't be bothering you anymore." After saying that, she said to Lu Jiu, "Jiu, I'm going back first. I'll see you later." Okay, Lu Jiu nodded. After Pan Magia left, Huzi asked them with a smile, "Brother, sister-in-law, what did you bring today?" "We are here to deliver the order," Li Chenmo said, putting down the bamboo basket and handing him the order list. Huzi was surprised that they could prepare the order so quickly. He took out the jujube cakes and dumplings from the basket and asked, "Brother, do you want to sell the extra ones?" My wife made 200 shrimp dumplings. We want to sell them for 50 cents each." Li Chenmo nodded. Huzi didn't haggle the price anymore since shrimp is rare. He quickly counted the money and said, "A total of 520 yuan. Here is the money." Lu Jiu took the money and said, "Thank you, Brother Huzi." "No problem, I made a lot of money selling your stuff," Huzi said with a smile. While the assistant was storing the cakes and dumplings, Lu Jiu said, "Brother Huzi, we won't be here in the next few weeks." Huzi was startled and asked, "Why? What happened?" "The spring plowing is coming, and we want to spend a few days resting before we start to work in the field," Lu Jiu said. Huzi nodded after listening to Lu Jiu's words. Although they can make a lot of money selling grain, meat, and other stuff in the black market, they still need to work in the fields on the production team. If they do not work, they will be taken to the police station for a few days and be re-educated. "Okay, if you have something good, just send it over. I will give you a good price," Huzi said after a while. "All right," Li Chenmo nodded. After completing the transaction, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu left Huzi's place and came to the corner where the old man was waiting. Seeing that the old man had arrived, Lu Jiu took out 2 kilograms of pork, 5 jars of wild honey, a bottle of cough syrup produced in the space, 20 eggs, 2 smoked fishes, and 5 kilograms of white rice from her space. She used the bamboo basket as the cover, so the old man saw nothing. As soon as the old man saw them, his eyes lit up. This time Li Chenmo also came over because the bamboo basket was quite heavy for his wife. When he stood in front of the old man, he looked at the old man from head to toe. The old man was not intimidated by his gaze and looked at him with interest instead. "Girl, you have such a good sense. Your husband is extraordinary," the old man said, stroking his beard. "Uncle, thank you for your compliment, but we don't have much time today. These are today's items. You see if there is anything you want," Lu Jiu said calmly. The old man uncovered the leaves covering the items and saw the items inside. He was very satisfied with the contents of the bamboo basket. "Girl, I want everything," the old man said while taking out a purse from his clothes. Lu Jiu took the purse and opened it. There were 5 gold coins inside, shining in the dim light. She took out a coin, weighed it, and guessed that each coin weighed about 30 to 50 grams. In this era, gold is more valuable than jade. Although she preferred jade to gold, Lu Jiu still accepted the gold bars. Regardless of era, gold is a hard currency, and its value will only increase over time. Collecting more gold is not a bad option. Seeing that she accepted the gold, the old man said, "Girl, if you have something good, can you give it to me first? In addition to jade, I also have a lot of gold." "Sure, as long as you can afford to pay, I will sell my things to you," Lu Jiu nodded. "Uncle, I will lend you this bamboo basket. You can return it to me next time," she added. "Thank you," the old man did not refuse her kindness and covered the contents with leaves before leaving. Lu Jiu and Li Chenmo came to a desolate alley and entered the space. After changing their clothes, they come out of the space with the bicycle. They rode their bicycles back to the village. At the same time, Zhang Dongmei was plowing in her front yard. She needs to prepare the soil before she can start planting her summer vegetables. While she was working, Zhao Siyu came over. Entering the house, her eyes glanced around, as if she was looking for something. When she walked up to Zhang Dongmei, Zhao Siyu looked at her disdainfully and asked, "Where's the eldest brother?" Zhang Dongmei didn't know why her sister-in-law was looking for her husband, so she asked, "Second sister-in-law, why are you looking for my husband?" Zhao Siyu waved her hand impatiently and said, "Just tell me where the eldest brother is. Why do you ask so many questions?" Zhang Dongmei frowned and said, "Zhao Siyu, you are looking for my husband. It is normal for me to ask you why you are looking for him." "Since I'm looking for your husband, of course, I have something important to tell him." "Why, are you worried that something will happen if I talk to your husband?" Zhao Siyu asked with a sneer. She was full of confidence in her beauty and looked at Zhang Dongmei condescendingly, especially when she sees Zhang Dongmei's hands and feet covered with mud. Due to heavy work and long-term exposure to the sun, Zhang Dongmei's skin has darkened and she looks older than her actual age. Not to mention she's a 29-year-old woman with 2 kids. The strange thing is that Li Chen still loves her so much and treats her very well. Zhao Siyu looked her over from head to toe and said, "Sister-in-law, I suggest you take more care of yourself. Otherwise, when your husband goes to find a younger, beautiful woman, it will be too late for you to cry." Zhang Dongmei was furious at her words, but she still held it back and said, "Zhao Siyu, you don't have to worry about my family affairs. You should pay more attention to your husband. I heard that he spent all the money my husband lent him for that woman again." Zhao Siyu glared at her and said, "You don't need to interfere in my affairs, just answer my questions." Zhang Dongmei smiled sarcastically and said, "In that case, don't interfere in my affairs. You can leave. My husband is not at home. I won't send you off." After saying that, Zhang Dongmei ignored Zhao Siyu and continued to plow the ground and pull out weeds. Zhao Siyu was angry and refused to leave as she did not get any benefits. She looked around and found washed radishes and cabbage piled in the basins beside the well. She walked over and took some radishes and cabbage, and then left angrily. Zhang Dongmei shook her head when she saw her taking away the vegetables. Not long after, Li Jingqian came over and asked with a pout, "Mother, why did you let my second aunt take our vegetables? It took us a long time to take care of it before we could harvest the vegetables." Hearing Li Jingqian's words, Zhang Dongmei bent down, looked into her son's eyes and said, "Xiaoqian, you have to remember that wealth is important, but it is not everything. We have a lot of food, so it doesn't matter if we give some to your second aunt who has no food at all." "But mother, my second aunt is so hateful. Not only is she rude to you, she also wants to sow discord between you and my father." Li Jingqian was still unhappy. He doesn't understand why his mother always gives in to his second aunt. She may be hateful, but she is also very pitiful. Compared to her, we are much happier. She can say these things as she likes, but it is our choice to listen or not. Xiaoqian, as a person, we must be open-minded and generous. Helping others is equal to helping yourself. Don't block all roads, because one day you may need to walk that road. Do you understand? Zhang Dongmei said patiently. Although Li Jingqian didn't quite understand what his mother said, he still nodded and remembered it in his heart. He believed that he would understand his mother's words in the future. "All right, don't be unhappy anymore. Mother will make your favorite meat buns for you in a while. Now, you go and play with your brother." After Zhang Dongmei finished speaking, she continued to plow the land. Being coaxed by his mother, Li Jingqian forgot all the unhappy things in the blink of an eye. All he could think about now was the meat buns for dinner. Although Zhang Dongmei didn't know much about the situation in the second branch, she knew that the second brother was actually having an affair with someone else's wife. So he kept giving money to that woman to buy things, leaving nothing for his wife, Zhao Siyu. Almost all the villagers knew about this, except Zhao Siyu, who was still in the dark. That's why Zhang Dongmei said she was pitiful. As a woman, she pitied Zhao Siyu for having a bad husband. She didn't want to embarrass her because they were both women. There is no need to make things difficult for another woman. If she were in Zhao Siyu's position, she might collapse when she found out about her husband having an affair with another woman. Therefore, despite her hateful character, she also admitted that Zhao Siyu was a strong woman. As for Zhao Siyu, after she left Li Chen's house, she went to her house near Father Li's house. She put the vegetables in the kitchen and went to Li Chenmo's house. Her husband has gone into town and told her that he needed to meet his employer to borrow money and asked her to wait for him in the village. When he left, Li Chengxun took all their money away, so now she has no money nor food at all and can only go to her husband's brothers for money and food. Although it is embarrassing, it is better than going to her parents' house to beg for food. At least her husband's family didn't dare to humiliate her too much. As for her natal family, if her parents knew about her current situation, let alone helping her, they might even sever ties with her. At the same time, Lu Jiu and Li Chenmo had just returned from town. Since he needed to get piglets from the production team, Li Chenmo wanted to ask Han Yuheng about it. "Wife, I'm going to visit the team leader. I'll be back around noon," Li Chenmo said after taking a sip of hot water. "Okay, be careful when you go out. Take this and give it to the team leader," Lu Jiu said while handing him a small basket. Li Chenmo looked at the basket and saw a small bottle of sesame oil, a small jar of wild honey, and 10 eggs. He understood that his wife gave this to Han Yuheng to make everything easier for him. Since he knew that these things came from his wife's space, he did not refuse and took them away. Not long after Li Chenmo left, Zhao Siyu came over. Unlike Li Chen's family, who likes to open their doors during the day, Lu Jiu hates being disturbed by villagers who come to chat, so she always locks the door. So when Zhao Siyu pushed the door, she couldn't open it and was stunned. After pushing several times but still unable to open the door, she finally knocked on the door. "Lu Jiu, open the door for me," she shouted and kept banging on the door loudly. If people didn't know better, they would have thought that Lu Jiu was owing money to her. After waiting for a while, the door was finally opened, and Lu Jiu stood there, blocking the way. Zhao Siyu was unhappy and wanted to enter the house. But before she could push Lu Jiu away, Lu Jiu dodged her hand and Zhao Siyu almost fell to the ground. After she stabilized her footing, she glared at Lu Jiu and said, "Lu Jiu, is this your attitude towards guests?" Lu Jiu rolled her eyes when she heard Zhao Siyu's words. She was indeed a guest, but an uninvited one. She always asks obvious questions, making Lu Jiu doubt her IQ. But even though she was thinking this, Lu Jiu still looked at Zhao Siyu with a smile and asked, "Why is my second sister-in-law here today?" Zhao Siyu snorted and said, "I'm here to visit the third brother. Where is he?" Lu Jiu raised her eyebrows and said, "My husband is not at home. You can just tell me what you want, and I will tell my husband later." No need to disturb you, I will wait for the third brother, Zhao Siyu said. Second sister-in-law, you came to find my husband early in the morning. With this, you have already disturbed me, Lu Jiu said while emphasizing the word, my husband. While you are fine with your husband meeting another woman, I'm not fine with it. Don't say you are just my husband's sister-in-law. Even if you are his cousin, I will not let you talk to him alone. Did you realize that you are acting inappropriately right now? Lu Jiu said coldly. Zhao Siyu was irritated by her words and said, Lu Jiu, watch your words. What do you mean by that? Second sister-in-law, it's you who have to pay attention to your words and deeds. I know exactly what I am talking about, but what about you? You came to find my husband, but you refused to tell me, his wife, your purpose. Logically speaking, if you have anything important to do, you should come to me instead of my husband. If you have no ulterior motives, why don't you tell me what you want and insist on waiting for my husband? Lu Jiu raised her eyes and said. Her words were sharp and laced with warning. After listening to her words, Zhao Siyu found that her words and actions could easily cause misunderstandings. Although she did have some feelings for Li Chenmo before, after being rejected by him and marrying Li Chengxuan, she never thought about having an affair with her brother-in-law. This time she was in the wrong, so Zhao Siyu was speechless. She looked at Lu Jiu's cold eyes and suddenly felt scared. After a while she found her voice and said in panic, You, don't talk nonsense. I don't have any ulterior motives for your husband. Lu Jiu observed her for a while and said, Since you have no ulterior motives, then tell me what your purpose is for coming to my husband. Zhao Siyu was embarrassed and annoyed. She was a proud woman, and although she usually behaved like a shameless person, she always made it seem like it was a given. So she can still pretend that she didn't do anything shameless and save her face. But now, Lu Jiu asked her directly. She couldn't bring herself to tell her that she wanted some food. It's too shameful. After waiting for a long time, Lu Jiu still didn't hear anything from Zhao Siyu and began to lose patience. Sister-in-law, if there is nothing else, I won't accompany you, Lu Jiu said and wanted to close the door. Zhao Siyu hurriedly held the door and shouted, Wait. Lu Jiu looked at her, waiting for her to speak. After a while, Zhao Siyu finally said, I'm here to get the food your husband promised my husband before. Lu Jiu raised her eyebrows, not believing her words at all. She understands her husband's personality. If he really wanted to give Li Chengxuan something, he wouldn't wait until they knocked on the door. Everything was delivered by him himself. But before she could speak, Lu Jiu heard a faint sound coming from Zhao Siyu's stomach. She looked at Zhao Siyu carefully and found that she was thinner and paler than the last time they met. Her skin even looks a little yellow. Although she didn't like the second branch, Lu Jiu frowned when she saw Zhao Siyu's sickly appearance. After considering for a moment, she finally stepped aside and said, Come in. Zhao Siyu secretly breathed a sigh of relief and finally entered the house. When she saw the bamboo fence that separated the plot in the front yard, she said nothing, despite having some curiosity. She knew clearly that Lu Jiu was not a soft persimmon like Zhang Dongmei. Entering the living room, Lu Jiu said, Sit down first, I'll go get the food. Zhao Siyu was surprised by her words. When she tried to get into the house, she just told Lu Jiu an obvious lie. As long as she could see Li Chenmo, she had the confidence that he would lend her some money or food. Therefore, she never expected that Lu Jiu would say such things. Did Li Chenmo really prepare food for Li Chengxuan? While Zhao Siyu was waiting in the living room, Lu Jiu went to the kitchen and took out a bamboo basket. She took the salted pork belly off the beam and cut 2 slices weighing around a catty. Then she scooped 2 kilograms of mixed grains from the jar into a small jar. Although mixed grains look similar to coarse grains, they are rich in nutrients and taste good. In addition to the grains and meat, she placed 10 eggs in the basket. When she returned to the living room, Lu Jiu saw Zhao Siyu eating the biscuits she had made before. She glanced at the open cabinet and said, Sister-in-law, as a guest, you are very comfortable in my house. Zhao Siyu had been to school before and understood Lu Jiu's sarcasm, but instead of feeling embarrassed, she said, You're a great cook. I'll bring these snacks back for my husband. To Lu Jiu, these biscuits were nothing, but she didn't like Zhao Siyu's attitude, so she said, Oh, since my sister-in-law likes it, then bring it back. Since you have got the food, you should leave. I am very busy. Hearing these words, Zhao Siyu's mouth suddenly stopped chewing. She quickly stuffed the remaining biscuits into her mouth, drank a cup of tea and said, What food? This is just a snack. Lu Jiu looked at the empty jar and asked, Sister-in-law, do you know how much this snack of mine is worth? It is made of brown sugar, white flour, eggs, raisins, milk, and honey. Each piece of ingredients is equivalent to 1 yuan. You ate a jar and you said it was just a snack. As soon as Zhao Siyu heard that it was 1 yuan apiece, she regretted eating it too quickly. She should eat it slowly and savor the taste. Lu Jiu knew from the original novel that Zhao Siyu was proud yet shameless, but she didn't expect that her shamelessness had reached a god level. It was a real eye-opener for her. She stared at Zhao Siyu's arm for a while. There was a bruise on Zhao Siyu's arm from the New Year's Eve dinner. It's been almost half a month, and it still hasn't healed. In addition to the bruises, she lost so much weight in a short period of time. Her skin was pale and she had multiple rashes on her hands and neck. She also noticed that every time Zhao Siyu finished speaking, she would take a few short breaths, as if she had just finished running and out of breath. Lu Jiu was not sure whether Zhao Siyu really had cancer, but these symptoms were very similar to the symptoms of blood cancer that she knew, so it was better for Zhao Siyu to go to the hospital for a checkup. She put the bamboo basket on the table, sat down opposite Zhao Siyu, and said seriously, "Sister-in-law, you don't look good. If you have any illness, it's better to go to the hospital for a checkup." When Zhao Siyu heard what she said, she glared at her and asked, "Are you cursing me? Do you think you don't need money to get checked in the hospital?" Lu Jiu pointed at the bruises on Zhao Siyu's arm and asked, "Sister-in-law, your bruises look so painful. Did you get hit by something?" Zhao Siyu lowered her eyes to look at the bruises and said nonchalantly, "Oh, I bumped into the table during New Year's Eve dinner. It didn't hurt, but it really took a long time for it to heal." Hearing her words, Lu Jiu's heart sank. Her situation is very similar to that of her colleague in her previous life who was diagnosed with a blood cancer. After thinking about it, she said, "Sister-in-law, how about I take you to the hospital for a checkup? Since bruises are difficult to heal, you can go to the doctor to find out what's wrong with your body." Zhao Siyu snorted at her words and said, "If you have so much money, you might as well buy some meat for me." When Lu Jiu heard this, she shook her head and sighed. People in this era really, they only think about eating meat all day long. Since Zhao Siyu rejected her offer, Lu Jiu stopped insisting and said, "These are for you. I'm very busy now and can't entertain you. Sister-in-law, please leave first." As soon as Zhao Siyu saw the food, her eyes lit up and said, "Since you are busy, I won't bother you any longer." After saying that, she didn't forget to take out the remaining biscuits from the jar before leaving. Lu Jiu looked at her back thoughtfully, trying to recall the information about Zhao Siyu in the original novel. After thinking for a long time, she still couldn't remember any information about Zhao Siyu's illness. She doesn't know if it's because Zhao Siyu is only a supporting character, or because for other reasons that it was not mentioned. But one thing Lu Jiu is sure of is that the possibility of Zhao Siyu suffering from cancer is very high. When she read the novel, she had no sense of the life and death of the characters. She even feels refreshed every time the heroine or hero slaps them in the face or punishes them for their bad deeds. But after she crossed over, she can no longer treat them like before. Just thinking that Zhao Siyu might have cancer made her feel uncomfortable. In this day and age, getting cancer is equal to a death sentence. Not to mention that this era is lagging behind in science and technology. Even in modern times, with rapid advances in technology and medical treatment, the mortality rate caused by cancer is still very high. It took her some time to adjust her emotions and calm down. Looking at the bright sunshine above her head, she locked the door and went to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Li Chenmo has a set of spare keys. Even if she locks the door, he can open it when he comes back. At the same time, in the production team office, Li Chenmo, Li Chen's, and Han Yuheng were waiting for the brigade secretary. In order to get the piglets, they need to notify the brigade and fill out a form before they can take the piglets back to be raised. After waiting for nearly half an hour, the brigade secretary finally entered the room. Seeing him coming, they stood up and said, "Hello, comrade." The brigade secretary came forward to shake hands with them, motioned them to sit down and said, "Comrades, please have a seat." Li Chenmo was calm even when facing the brigade secretary, but Li Chen's was very nervous. This was the first time he met the leader. As for Han Yuheng, as one of the leaders of the production team, he once met with the brigade leaders. Therefore, he is still somewhat calm. After sitting down, the brigade secretary looked at Li Chenmo and said with a smile, "I heard that a member from the 12th production team wants to raise 4 pigs. Is he this comrade?" Han Yuheng nodded and said, "He is indeed the one." The brigade secretary nodded and said, "There is a serious shortage of meat now. It would be a good thing if more people could volunteer to raise pigs. I wonder if this comrade has any plans for how to raise the pigs." Li Chenmo thought for a while and said, "My wife and I have read some books on pig raising methods, but we have never raised pigs. Therefore, we want to try this method and find better raising methods to increase the maximum size and weight of pigs." The brigade secretary was delighted after hearing what he said. For them, the most urgent thing now is to find better ways to improve their people's living standards, and the most basic method is to increase food production. If they could find a way to increase the weight of pigs, it would be a huge benefit to the public. Therefore, he strongly supports Li Chenmo's idea. Good, comrade, I hope you can successfully find the method. If you need anything, you can contact the brigade and we will try our best to help you, the brigade secretary said with a smile. Li Chenmo just smiled when he heard this, while Han Yuheng and Li Chen's were surprised by the brigade secretary's words. They glanced at Li Chenmo, wondering how he could remain calm in front of the leader. After a brief chat with the brigade secretary, they were taken to another room to fill out a form and then asked to bring back 4 little pigs. The piglets are only 1 month old and weigh about 3 kilograms. Li Chenmo put the 2 piglets into the basket of the bicycle, while Li Chen's held the other 2 piglets. After getting on the bicycle, Li Chenmo looked at Han Yuheng and said, "Team leader, thank you for your help today." Han Yuheng waved his hand and said, "I'm just leading the way for you, nothing more. On the contrary, it's me who should thank you and your wife for the gift." "Team leader, since you are busy, we will take our leave first," Li Chenmo said without talking about the gift. "All right," Han Yuheng said. After the 2 of them were far away from Han Yuheng, Li Chen said, "Third brother, your wife is so generous. She didn't even mind giving away precious sesame oil and wild honey." Li Chenmo understood what his elder brother meant without even hearing the rest of his words. He also felt helpless about this situation. Only he knew that his wife had restrained herself when giving gifts. With the magical space, it is normal for his wife to act like a prodigal daughter. Everything she gives away is actually free, so of course she was generous. But he is the only one who knows about this. Therefore, everyone always thought that his wife was a prodigal, and they felt pity for him for marrying such a woman as wife. She will spend all his money, and they will end up eating the north wind. If possible, Li Chenmo wanted the whole world to know how lucky he was to marry Lu Juyu. Not only did he marry a beautiful, passionate, kind, considerate and excellent girl, he also got a hidden treasure. He was afraid that people would scold him out of jealousy if they found out the truth. If this secret became known to others, he feared the government would arrest his wife and use her as a test subject. Therefore, even if Li Chenmo felt suffocated, he still kept his mouth shut. He will take this secret to his grave because of the danger it could put his wife in. Li Chen's didn't hear Li Chenmo's answer, sighed and said nothing more. This is his third brother's family matter. He could only remind him but not interfere too much. It was already noon when they walked into Li Chenmo's house, and the smell of braised fish filled the air. As soon as Li Chen smelled the fragrance, his mouth watered. Although Lu Juyu is a prodigal, he has to admit that her cooking skills are unrivaled in the entire village. As for Li Chenmo, after smelling the aroma of the food, he turned to Li Chen's and said, "Brother, please stay for a meal." Okay, Li Chen's did not refuse the invitation. They put the piglets in a cage first, and planned to put them into the pigsty after lunch. They would later need to make some adjustments to the pig pen to keep the piglets warm. Li Chenmo and Li Chen's both went to the backyard to wash their hands and faces. Although the weather is still a bit cold, the water temperature is acceptable for them, so they didn't plan on using hot water. However, when Lu Jiu heard the sound outside, she knew it was her husband. So when they walked to the backyard, they saw her pouring hot water into the basin. Hearing their footsteps, she turned back and said with a smile, "Husband, you are back. Brother, you are here. Wife, brother will have a meal with us," Li Chenmo said and went to scoop up warm water. Okay, I made braised fish today, and my brother can bring some back later for my sister-in-law and nephews to eat. Lu Jiu nodded. Then I'll thank the third sister-in-law on their behalf, Li Chen said with a smile. Lu Jiu nodded to him and went to the kitchen to check the dishes. For lunch, she prepared steamed buns, fish stew, egg drop soup, and fried sauerkraut. The pickles were given by her mother and they taste good. Although it was nothing compared to what she gave her natal family, what mattered was their thoughts. After Li Chenmo finished washing his hands and face, he went into the kitchen and helped his wife carry the food to the living room. Not long after, Li Chen's came in and helped carry the food. With their help, Lu Jiu only needed to move the tableware and a pot of hot ginger milk to the living room. After the dishes were served, Lu Jiu scooped a bowl of egg drop soup for her husband and said, "Husband, have some soup first." Thank you, wife. Li Chenmo took the bowl and said with a smile. Li Chen's had become accustomed to their interactions and chose to focus on the food. Not to mention that he is already very familiar with his newly married third sister-in-law. He even has the best relationship with his third brother. So he didn't act too reserved and started eating with relish. While eating lunch, Lu Jiu asked, "Husband, how is the piglet matter? has everything been resolved? Li Chenmo swallowed the food first and said, "MHMM, my brother and I brought the piglets back. We may need to put more hay in the pen. The piglets are still too young to withstand the cold." Lu Jiu nodded after listening to her husband's words and tried to recall the knowledge about pig raising in her previous life. As a chef, she is willing to spend more energy to obtain good ingredients. Therefore, she often travels to the countryside in search of high-quality ingredients. As the leader of the purchasing team, she visits several animal farms every year to check the quality of the meat before deciding whether to continue cooperation. So after a few years, she gained some understanding of animal raising. While her knowledge may not have been as good as that of a modern animal farmer, she knew how to mix the feed for optimal growth. "Husband, how old is the piglet?" she asked. "It is about 1 month old and weighs 3 kilograms, Li Chenmo said. Lu Jiu was surprised that the piglet was weaned so early. Typically, solid feed is introduced through creep feeding to piglets while they are still suckling. They only stop suckling when they reach around 18 kg. It seems that she still needs to mix the pig feed herself. The pig feed produced in her space is aimed at pigs above 20 kilograms. Piglets and adult pigs require different protein values. After calculating the protein value, she decided to grind corn, soybeans, rice bran, broken rice, wheat bran, and some grains. As for water, Li Chenmo has built a bamboo water pipe to ensure that the pig can drink clean water throughout the day, so she only needs to prepare pig feed. After lunch, Li Chenmo and Li Chen's took the piglet to the pig pen. They already had a lot of hay stored in the pig pen, so they just spread it on the ground to make sure the piglets were warm. They also put the piglets in the same pen so they can huddle together for warmth. While both of them were working in the pig pen, Lu Jiu went to her space to get the ingredients needed for pig feed. She uses a feed grinder to mix everything. The crusher mixer can make 20 kilograms of feed at a time. Since the piglets are small and each piglet only needs 0.35 kilograms of feed per day, she only prepared 1 batch of feed that can be eaten for 10 days. After she was done, Lu Jiu left her space carrying a bucket of pig feed. The pig feed has been mixed with pellets to ensure that the piglets receive adequate nutrition without the need to suckling. She left home and came to the pigsty via the bamboo bridge. When she arrived at the pig pen, Li Chenmo and Li Chen's had just finished spreading hay and were checking the condition of the piglets. Seeing her coming with a bucket of pig feed, Li Chenmo walked over, took the bucket from her hand, frowned and said, "Wife, why are you bringing the feed? We agreed that you are only responsible for cooking the feed and I will do the rest." Lu Jiu smiled when she heard this and said, "Husband, I'm not that weak. This is not heavy." Seeing that they were showing affection again, Li Chen's felt like he was being stuffed with something that made him feel uncomfortable and said, "Third brother, my wife is still waiting for me. I'll take my leave now." When Lu Jiu heard this, she quickly said, "Brother, I have packed up the braised fish. Help me bring it back to my sister-in-law and nephews." Then she turned to Li Chenmo and said, "Husband, I'll send your brother off first." "Okay, brother, thank you for your help today," Li Chenmo said. "No problem, just come to me if you need help." Li Chen's nodded to him and left. Lu Jiu and Li Chen's both returned to the house. She came to the kitchen, took out a bamboo basket from the cabinet, and put a bowl of braised fish in it. "Brother, thank you for today," she said as she handed over the bamboo basket. Li Chen's took the basket because he knew that his third brother and third sister-in-law would only be relieved if they accepted their food, and said, "It's a small matter. Third sister-in-law, your sister-in-law is making pickles. When it's ready, I will send some over." "Thank you, brother," Lu Jiu said with a smile. After a brief conversation, Li Chen's left. Lu Jiu did not go to the pigsty again, but went to wash the dishes. She is in good health and cannot bear to let her husband do everything alone. At the same time, the news that Li Chenmo had brought back 4 piglets from the brigade had spread throughout the production team. Chen Anwen and Wang Muxiao were sitting on the balcony mending clothes when several villagers came over carrying baskets. Seeing the villagers coming, Chen Anwen smiled and said to them, "Aunts and sisters-in-law, you are here." Although she calls them aunt and sister-in-law, in fact they are neighbors and have no family relationship with the Lu family. It's just a polite way of addressing them. The villagers smiled, sat down on the benches, and took out their clothes from the basket and started to mend it. Chen Anwen went to get the cups and poured them tea. It is common for villagers to sit together and chat while mending clothes. It's just that villagers rarely come to Lu's house. Although Mother Lu is very kind to her daughter-in-law, she doesn't like Chen Anwen and Wang Muxiao gossiping too much. This is why Mother Lu sometimes scolds Wang Muxiao. As a person who likes gossip, Wang Muxiao clearly understands the purpose of the neighbors coming here today. She also heard from her father-in-law about her sister-in-law raising pigs. So when she heard the villagers talking about Li Chenmo bringing back 4 little pigs, she was just a little surprised. She thought that since Lu Jiyu was in poor health, they could raise 2 pigs at most. But when she heard about the size of the pig pen from her husband, she knew that her sister-in-law had planned to raise more pigs from the beginning. Since the neighbors didn't ask anything, Chen Anwen and Wang Muxiao pretended not to know anything when they chatted with them. After chatting for more than 30 minutes, a neighbor finally couldn't restrain her curiosity and said, "Sister-in-law, I heard that your brother-in-law brought back 4 piglets from the brigade. Have they told you anything before?" Chen Anwen smiled and said, "It's my sister-in-law's family matter, we didn't ask." The neighbors looked at each other in embarrassment when they heard her words. Chen Anwen's words were to tell them that this was Lu Jiyu's family matter, and they should not gossip behind her back, nor were they qualified to interfere in this matter. The neighbor laughed awkwardly and heard Wang Muxiao say, "I wonder if my sister-in-law has heard about your brother being beaten by people because he was molesting a girl." The neighbor was a little surprised after hearing what she said. She frowned and said, "Wang Muxiao, don't talk nonsense. My brother and his wife have a very good relationship. It is impossible for my brother to do this." Wang Muxiao looked at her in disbelief and said, "Oh, it seems that my sister-in-law doesn't know about this. Blame me for talking too much. I shouldn't tell you this. However, everyone who went to the town a few days ago knows about this matter, because your brother and his wife had a quarrel in the street after he was beaten half to death." Chapter 175, Blackface, Redface. After hearing her words, the neighbor's face darkened. She quickly packed up her things, stood up and said, "I still have things to deal with, so I'll take my leave now." After leaving these words, she hurried back to ask her brother about it. If what Wang Muxiao said was true, their family would lose a lot of face. Her brother was the only son in the family. If he was beaten half to death, it would be a disaster for her family. Seeing her hurried steps, Wang Muxiao sighed and said, Indeed, we shouldn't meddle in other people's private affairs. If we are too noisy, we will be punished. Whether my sister-in-law and her husband can raise 4 pigs or not has nothing to do with us. Don't you think so?" After hearing her words, their faces darkened, but they still had to smile at Wang Muxiao. After all, what she said was true. This matter has nothing to do with them. On the contrary, if Lu Jiyu and Li Chenmo succeed in raising 4 pigs, it will also be a good thing for everyone. Next year they will have more meat. It's just their nature to be curious and gossipy. Who knew these words would be spoken by the gossip queen herself today? "You're right, it would be great if this is true, because we can get more meat next year," an aunt said quickly to relieve the tense atmosphere. Seeing that everyone understood what she meant, Wang Muxiao lowered her head and continued to sew clothes. Although she likes to gossip, she never pries into other people's affairs. At most, she would only listen to the villagers' gossip and share gossip with her husband behind the closed door. Wang Muxiao plays the black face, while Chen Anwen needs to play the red face. After all, these people are their neighbors. They meet every day and even need their help sometimes, so it's best to maintain a good relationship, even if it's just a superficial relationship. "Aunt Liu is right," Chen Anwen said while pouring tea for the 2 of them. Seeing her pouring tea for them again, the neighbors smiled and nodded. Usually when they go to other people's houses to chat, the most they can get is to drink some warm water. So when they came and were served hot tea, they were all surprised. Apart from being a little envious of the Lu family for having a good son-in-law and filial daughters-in-law, they didn't have any jealousy. On the contrary, they really want to establish a good relationship with the Lu family so that they can come over often for tea. While everyone was drinking tea, Wang Muxiao raised the cup and opened the lid. Instantly, the air was filled with the fragrance of milk. She took a sip, slowly savoring the taste. From the beginning of pregnancy, she drank 2 glasses of milk every day. Milk is not made from melting milk candies in hot water, but from powdered milk. They are also people who have experienced pregnancy before. Not to mention drinking milk, being able to eat an egg occasionally is already a blessing for them. So when the neighbors smelled the fragrance, they all looked at her in surprise. "Sister Wang, are you drinking milk?" a young woman asked. She was also in the early stages of pregnancy at this time. Wang Muxiao smacked her lips, rubbed her belly and said, "Yes, my husband and parents-in-law are very worried about the child in my belly. They bought some milk powder for me. Because I fell down last time, my body was injured and I need nourishment. I feel sorry for making my parents-in-law worry so much." The young woman was envious when she said, "Sister Wang, you are so blessed. I am also pregnant, but I can't even eat eggs once a month." Hearing her words, Chen Anwen was taken aback. She hurriedly took the teacup in front of her and said, Zyro Fang, since you are pregnant, you can't drink tea. Zyro Fang looked regretfully at the cup of tea that was taken away by Chen Anwen. Such a good tea, but now because of her words, she can no longer even enjoy it. Not long after, Chen Anwen came back with a bowl of berries. She put it in front of Zyro Fang and said, "Since you are pregnant, you can just eat this. I picked these berries from the mountain yesterday. They are fresh and sweet."